This is the Trailblazers Podcast, Episode 3, with Dr. Nekeshia Hammond.
I found a place and, started expanding and going from there. But it really was a moment to say, you know what, you have to get out of your comfort zone.
You're listening to the Trailblazers Podcast, where we will explore the stories of successful Black professionals. Join us as we highlight the knowledge, resources, and tools of these accomplished trailblazers to help provide the know-how, confidence, and motivation you need to blaze your trail. And now, here's your host, Stephen Hart.
What's up, everyone? My guest today is Dr. Nekeshia Hammond. Dr. Hammond is a licensed psychologist, speaker, and author, as well as the owner of Hammond Psychology and Associates, PA, a private practice dedicated to helping children, teens, families, and adults. She's owned her business for the past 7 years, and she's enjoyed helping numerous families. In addition to her private practice work, she's actively involved in giving back to the community. She's a 2016 president-elect of the Florida Psychological Association and the 2016 secretary of the Ryan Nece Foundation. Additionally, she's involved in various outreach activities in the community. Dr. Hammond is also a key psychologist at the state and federal levels, where she meets with legislators and actively advocates for patients of mental health and mental health professionals. She's also frequently consults with the media regarding mental health topics affecting children and families, and she enjoys speaking at various events. Currently, Dr. Hammond is working on publishing a book on how to keep children emotionally healthy, and the book will be released in the spring of 2016, so we'll have to do an update for the community when her book is launched. I'm eager to get started with today's interview, so join me in welcoming Dr. Hammond. Hello, Doc.
Hi, how are you?
I am great. Thank you so very much for joining us on today's session.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I've known you for several years. We initially met as neighbors back in Tampa, and I was much more of a friend of your husband, and we rarely had the opportunity to have much of a one-on-one conversation about what you do and your background. But, in the past year or so, I've seen you generate so much media attention, and awards keep popping up for you on LinkedIn. And, I just thought it would be great to talk with you a little bit further. And I'm happy that our initial conversation led to today, and we now have you on the show. I've shared a little bit about your background, but I'd like to give you a minute or two to tell the Trailblazers community a little bit more about you.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, I'm in private practice, have been for 7 years. Aside from my career life, if you will, I'm a proud mother of a 3-year-old son, and a wife of a husband that's very supportive with all my endeavors, it seems like. So just, like everyone else, just trying to do that parenting balance and career and life and wellness and all that good stuff. So
now you've succeeded at so much, and now you're an entrepreneur. What was your dream as a kid? When did you first learn about and develop an interest in psychology?
So actually my dream as a child, I remember when I was 7 years old, I said that I wanted to be a doctor. I knew that, and I said that I wanted to work with kids, but back then I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician because I went to my pediatrician every year, obviously, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's a doctor, and they work with kids. So it wasn't until really around high school, I was in the IB program, and I got to take 2 years of high school psychology, and I really learned more about psychology, and even more so in college. I really found out, wow, this is more of the direction I want to go in, because I really wanted to help more children as opposed to more of a pediatrician role. But I would, definitely say as a young child, I knew I wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to work with kids.
Was there anyone that inspired you to get into psychology?
So my high school teacher, actually, from a wee bit ago, his name was Mr. Ivy. He really inspired me a lot. Taught me a lot about psychology in general. And then at the University of Florida, where I graduated from for undergrad, there was a professor there, Dr. Carolyn Tucker, who was absolutely amazing. She is just extremely professional, and she has won numerous awards. She's very driven, did amazing research, and I got the opportunity to be on her research team, which was just amazing. All of us just really looked up to her. So those two individuals definitely inspired me to get into psychology.
And so fast forward a bit, Now you're running a practice of your own. Are there daily rituals that you have to help sharpen your mind and keep you on the ball in running your business?
I really do. Two things that really work well for me is one, and it sounds really basic, but one is just taking deep breaths, because naturally I am a very, oh my goodness, I have to go to a board meeting. I have a patient next. I have to do this. I have to call the media and this person. And I'm like, in my natural state. So really every single day, I, just even if it's a couple minutes, just like, okay, take a deep breath, relax, calm down. And even in the moment when I feel myself like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, it's like, just stop, take a deep breath, breathe. So I do that a lot. And also I really try to surround myself with anything inspirational. So there's a lot online, good and bad, but especially on different social media and things like that, I try to subscribe to inspirational quotes or, stories about successful people and things of that nature, just to really stay motivated. Because when you're running your own business, you're your own boss and no one's necessarily telling you what to do. So you have to stay motivated. So I do those two things.
You've been running your business for 7 years?
Yes, 7 years this month.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's a big accomplishment, right?
Thanks.
What are some of the big lessons you've learned along the way as a psychologist, as a business owner?
So as a psychologist, I would definitely say that it's been really interesting because I hear, as you can imagine, every story out there. I've met a lot of families, but what I've learned is that deep down, people are really a lot stronger than they think. And in life, we have so much to endure when you think about it. I mean, at some point, there's loss, whether it's a job or a relationship or, an opportunity or business, whatever it is, there's a lot of loss that we have to deal with. And I've seen so many families and, children and adults really turn their life around. And it's really cool to see that. And I'm a believer. I may be a little biased, but I'm a believer in how strong and impactful that human connection can be with other people. So it's been so cool to just see people's lives transformed. It's been an amazing experience.
And anything that really stood out, lessons learned on the entrepreneurial side?
On the entrepreneurial side, I would just say that, and it sounds a little silly, but I did not know it was going to be so hard. I think, getting into grad school and starting a business, you're like, I want to do, but you forget it's hard sometimes. And, luckily there's a lot of people. I feel blessed to have a really strong network and just people to turn to and ask questions to really motivate you and, answer your questions about what comes up in a business.
Do you actually have mentors or like a support group, a mastermind group that you turn to for accountability and for helping get advice to grow the business?
Yeah, I have. And my mentors really, they've, I guess, changed along the way. Obviously when you're a child, you have certain people in your life that are mentors, but I've been really grateful. I've worked with a lady, her name's Tammy Levent. She's local here. She has an amazing travel agency, and I've worked with her as her client as she was my business consultant for a number of years. And it's been really neat because I went into that, actually a couple of my mentors, but I went into that thinking, you're going to get business strategies and marketing and things like that, which I did get. But also I got to see the beauty of these particular entrepreneurs really giving back and how impactful their really successful business could be for the community. So that was cool to observe it and also, learn to do that within my own business. So
it's very important. I don't think, I've been sharing with a couple of the people that doing some research, putting this podcast together, one of the number one things that I found affected Black businesses from succeeding was the fact that they didn't have the mentorship of other businesses to help coach them and, mentor them up and hold them accountable, right? A lot of people today have joined mastermind groups and have several mentors to kind of help them know what steps to take, hold them accountable, give them guidance. And so it's good to kind of hear that you've had some mentorship along the way, and clearly it's helped.
Definitely.
You
Definitely. Huge.
in a big way, right?
Big way, yes. Would highly recommend it.
That's good. Now, there are many listeners on our podcast who are going to be entrepreneurs and hoping to access some of your secret sauce for building their own successful business. They're tuning in right now wanting to know, how do I get where you are today, and what's your recipe for success? Now, I'm going to ask you to share a little bit more on that in just a minute. But before we do, I want us to probably take a step back and talk about some of your roadblocks, because I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've run several businesses, and no matter what line of work you're in, what type of business you start, you don't arrive at success on a direct route, right? You might bang at your craft for several years and go through so many hurdles before you actually realize whatever you define as success, right?
Right.
So let's take a minute. Share with our audience a time when you probably experienced some measure of failure. Things didn't go the way you planned. Talk to me a little bit about that challenge and what happened and what you did to overcome that obstacle.
Okay. Well, actually, it was starting back in graduate school, and most people don't know this, but after the first year of graduate school, I actually had to drop out of the program. It was very devastating because I was really young at the time, and actually when I applied to graduate school, I applied for the master's program, and they accepted me into the doctorate program. So it was exciting. I was like, oh my goodness, yes. And you just think, I made it. I'm in a doctorate program. Let's go. You're counting down your 4 or 5 years and you're done. I felt like I worked so hard. I mean, I had a 3.9 something GPA. I was like, yep, I'm good. But what had happened was that the tuition hiked. I mean, this enormous hike in tuition, and they were working on some accreditation things. So literally, I got to a point where I was like, I cannot afford to go to graduate school. And it was devastating. I mean, my whole world just like, what? What do you mean? So I had to take a year off. And in that year, though, I didn't know what would happen with the accreditation, if I was going back. And a lot of my, friends and were asking me, like, what are you going to do if you're not a psychologist? And I was just like, I don't know. That's my passion. I want to work with kids, and that's what I want to do. So needless to say, thankfully, a year later, they, worked on their accreditation or whatnot. And so that it basically qualified me for, additional financial assistance and loans and all that. So I had to reapply to the program.
Wow.
So kind of put your tail between your legs, reapply to the program and get back in and just, keep going from there. But yeah, it was definitely a struggle and, not something that I thought would happen, but managed to get past that. So.
What would you say pushed you through that doubt? The doubt that crept in?
It really, I think really just constantly saying, I can't give up. I felt like I knew, at the time, this is what I want to do. So I cannot give up. And in that year off, actually, maybe to help myself cope, I trained for my first half marathon. And wow. Yeah, and I was proud of doing that physically, but really honestly, mentally, because it's an endurance sport and you have a lot of time to think with yourself. And it really helped me mentally to just say, keep going and you can't give up on this. You have to try again. And, like I said, luckily circumstances change and I was able to continue. But yeah.
That's a really neat story. Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
All right. So, and there are obviously many, many more events and things that definitely happened, right?
Right.
To get you to where you are today.
Mm-hmm.
Was there ever a decision or a defining moment that you probably considered to be a significant one on this journey towards today's success?
I would say, so when I first started the practice, I was renting a one office, 150 square foot space or whatnot, in a larger facility with other psychologists. And there was a time when I said, okay, I want to expand, but as nerve-wracking as it is, I was in my late 20s to start a business. It was also nerve-wracking to think I have to move out of my comfort zone. and leave, my comfortable little one office place was just me, myself, and I, and expand the business. So, but I, a couple weeks away from delivering my child, I was very pregnant at the time. I decided to move out of that space with faith. And I mean, I literally remember that day the movers came, and I'm literally, pretty much 9 months pregnant. And they're like, can we help you? I'm like, just move my stuff right now. I'm big and pregnant. Please move my stuff out of here. But I moved my things out. I had no idea where I was going. I knew I would be going on maternity leave in a couple of, for a couple months. And in that time, I'm a woman of faith, and I found a place and, started expanding and going from there. But it really was a moment to say, you know what, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have plans and, business goals, and got to start, keep it moving. So
I just love that. As an entrepreneur, I just love that. That's great. You have to get out of your comfort zone in order to see change. Mm-hmm. And that's great. So, if you had to attribute 3 reasons why you've risen to where you are today in your practice, what would they be?
I would say the first one is passion. I feel so blessed and so fortunate to really do what I love. And it's working with children, working with families, and, being an opportunity to be in the community. So I would say passion and persistence. The second thing I would say is making sacrifices, meaning sometimes, and I think, balance is very overrated as a term, because especially as an entrepreneur, we can't always equally divide our time. So it's not this nice pie chart where family has, 25% of your time, and work is 25% of your time, and this is 25% of your time. Sometimes, unfortunately, you have to make sacrifices with your time. So maybe, the family time goes down a little bit at some point, or this part of your life, the leisure time, goes down a little bit. I know there's been a lot of, all-nighters in the process of learning everything. So making sacrifices. And then the third thing I think is really asking a lot of questions, especially with a business. There's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of factors, but really taking the time, asking questions, doing the research, to get, whether it's a business plan or expansion or marketing or whatever it is, just really asking those questions.
That in and of itself gets you out of your comfort zone to ask those questions too, because I know you have to almost press sometimes to get answers that are going to help you move that needle.
Yes.
And that is very difficult, but it's very important at the same point in time as an entrepreneur to not be afraid to ask those tough questions and get the help you need.
Yes.
So as a marketer, there's a business term we call USP, your unique selling proposition. And so I wanted to ask, what's in it for the customers of your practice that they can't get from someone somewhere else? What's the Dr. Hammond difference?
I think the Dr. Hammond difference is that like I said, I really love what I do. So I try to find creative ways to help people. So I am not at all an advocate of any type of cookie cutter approach, whether it be therapy or, psychological testing or whatnot. I think everyone is very different. But what we've done, for example, in our office is, we ran into a situation where some people say, I can't afford therapy. I can't afford whatever, the doctor rate or that sort of thing. So I brought on, I'm a supervisor for doctoral level interns, and what they can do is they can provide reduced fee for, individuals that maybe they can't afford the, quote unquote doctor rate, but you can still get the services you need. And another thing that we did was, I think a couple years ago, we started free therapy for, I have a very special place in my heart for big brothers, big sisters. So for the littles in the program, then they get free therapy because a lot of those kids have, they're in situations where they may be at or below the poverty level, so they would never get access to any type of mental health services necessarily. So we provide, free therapy for some of those kids in that program. So really, I think we just try to find creative ways to help people in various situations, no matter what.
That's great. Dr. Hammond, I just want to take a minute today to acknowledge you. You've succeeded at becoming a doctor, despite those challenges in the early phase in school, a successful entrepreneur while also being a wife and a mother. And in the past, several years, and especially in this last couple of years, you've been stacking up the awards, and you've been featured in Essence and Ebony and appearing on TV and radio. I just want to say congratulations on becoming a positive role model in our community for women, for Black professionals, and for entrepreneurs.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. So we've got just a few more minutes with you, but now we want to take things above and beyond, and we're going to speed things up a bit in these last couple minutes. Are you ready?
Yes, ready.
All right. All right, give me one effective skill or technique we could add or improve on today to become better than we were yesterday.
I would definitely say, as specifically for business owners, to have a team of consultants to answer questions, because you do not have to be the expert in everything. So if you need an accountant, if you need business consulting, marketing consulting, do your research and have your team of consultants.
What's one book you read that moved you to take action in some way?
One of my favorite books is The Success Principles, and it's by Jack Canfield. And it has so many really concrete exercises that you can do to better yourself, to better the community. If you need to learn your life's purpose, and a lot of vision exercises and things like that. So I really love The Success Principles.
What's something small you've done that you're proud of?
So this year, it actually happened this past Christmas. Our church every year we do, like giving presents out to children in need, that sort of thing. And I've done that, I think this is like the 9th year, because I just love that program. And this year, some of the families were not able to make it to the party where we give out the gifts, and for this particular local school. And so I felt really bad because I knew that they had already gone on break and they didn't have transportation to come to the party. So they would have gotten the gifts, when school started again. I'm like, well, that defeats the purpose because you don't get it for Christmas. Right. So I called, got the number and called two of the families and one of the ladies to deliver their gifts. And one of the ladies, it was the saddest thing, but she told me, she was it was like I was her savior, but she was like, thank you so much for calling me. I've been crying because I didn't have transportation. I couldn't get to the party, and my kids would have nothing for Christmas. And I was like, oh my goodness gracious, so I got to deliver gifts. One lady was waiting outside of her house. It felt like I was Santa Claus a little bit, but it's just so amazing. Sometimes the things that we think we're doing that are small have the biggest impact. I didn't know, all of that about her family, and sometimes the small things are really big to someone else. So that was a pretty cool experience.
Absolutely. Can a future trailblazer have too many goals they're chasing at one time?
I would say absolutely not. I think you should prioritize your goal, but I don't think you can have too many goals. I think it's really cool to be in, a lot of different projects and a lot of different goals. So prioritize, but you can't have too many goals.
Name an online resource. It could be an app, software, or tool that you use every day in your business and you just can't live without it.
So for me, it's social media, and that would be Twitter. There are so many really great resources for business strategies and tips and things like that. So, and they're, pretty quick, 140 characters or less. So I use Twitter every day.
What do you wish you knew when you were younger that would have made you wiser and even more successful today?
I really wish I knew that it is okay to not have, as you mentioned before, that linear path to success. I wish someone had said, you know what, there's going to be a lot of bumps along the way, but it's okay. It's a lot of hard work, but you can still get there, and don't really get hung up on the small stuff, but keep in mind the bigger picture.
Very, very important. And so that brings me to my final question for today. Is there one truth that has held constant throughout your life's journey?
I would say really two words, and that is keep going. That's kind of a little mantra that I actually tell myself, and it's helped me well, especially training for some of the half marathons, to just, literally keep saying, keep going. But also, in business with, like you mentioned, all the stresses, things come up and things don't go as planned. And just to remember that, just keep going.
I might have to use that one.
I use it a lot. Yeah.
Dr. Hammond, please tell our listeners where they can learn more about you, and we'll wrap up for today.
Okay. So our website is www.hammondpsychology.com. Or, as I mentioned, I'm always on Twitter, so it's Dr_Hammond. Well,
thank you again. I really appreciate you being our guest today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Dr. Hammond. Be sure to check out the show notes page at www.tbpod.com/episode 3 to get access to all the resources mentioned in this episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast and this episode, please go ahead and leave us a review on iTunes, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. The reviews and subscriptions help us in a big way with getting the ranking up for the show within iTunes. Also, please be sure to share the podcast with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Guys, have a terrific week. Go out and blaze your trail.